things seem to be merciless to us, it's it's only because we've been merciless to our mind by choosing duality.
Exactly. Exactly. And how silly that is.
Hmm.
All right. So I'm just giving it a second for the YouTube page to come up. That we are broadcasting live on YouTube, but I have to make sure that it's not, the sound is not on
Okay.
the
Shall I
YouTube.
give the usual introduction while you're doing that?
Yeah, please do that.
Okay. Well, this is Lynn Johnson and Bruce Rawls on ACIM Gather, and we are, as we typically do on Saturday mornings, reading aloud from a favorite course-related book. And for the last couple of years, give or take, we've been reading Absence from Felicity, the story of Helen Schuckman and her scribing of A Course in Miracles by Kenneth Wapnick, PhD. And it is a wonderful biography. And as we've been saying, probably, if not every week, quite a few of them, that, the first pass through a decade or so ago, when Lynn and I both read this the first time, it was like, oh, what a great biography. And now we read it and it's like, wow, what an amazing story about our resistance and projection, and how Helen demonstrated how brilliant our minds really are, and the sane half of our mind, and with her representation of that, that brilliance taking the form of A Course in Miracles and everything else she channeled in that regard, the two supplements, and her gifts of God poetry, and yet, like us as well, because we still believe that separation is possible, we have a split mind, and Helen demonstrated that royally as well, with her enormous resistance to the ideas of the Course, even though she knew them intimately and was able to draw from that intimate knowledge in order to write the Course. So anyway, we're on page 448 in the print version that I have in front of me, and not too different from the digital version that Lynn has in front of her, page
Or
428 of 492, 87%. So we're coming up on 90% done in this wonderful book.
exactly.
And I have us, shall I start reading where we left off?
Absolutely. Yeah,
Okay.
please do. And
Okay.
I wanted to just say that as I've been reading this book, I have been relating to everyone, all the characters in my willingness, my acceptance, my rejection, my fears. I mean, really, I just see myself throughout this, and my own reluctance uh, to do what I'm being asked to do,
Mhm.
and yet still doing it. Which is
Yeah, and we're not asked to change our behavior or to try to modify the dream, including the physical self and the personality that we think we have in our. Um, we're asked just to look at it without condemnation, and that is the cause of the transformation. That's basically what allows us to relinquish our white-knuckled grip on a fearful thought system, and one that's a condemning thought system that says we pulled off this impossible crime and we should feel horrible and guilty and and fearful about it, and because it was a sin. But the sin is made up because the universe is made up, and the thought that made it up is made up. I was listening to Ken's commentary this morning on the world a bad idea. It's a pretty, the title alone is fairly humorous, but um, he was saying how, modern physics, aligns with the Course insofar as it says that, what we think of as a material universe is the result of thought. And then certainly the um, quantum entanglement and the double slit experiment, all those kinds of things certainly reinforce that idea. But where quantum physics isn't quite ready to tread, doesn't dare to tread, at least in terms of the mainstream uh, media that I'm aware of, and with probably few exceptions, um, the, the modern physics doctrine doesn't espouse the idea that the thought that made up the universe was illusory, just as the manifestation is illusory. So we can say that the our perception is incorrect because it's coming from the mind, but I think the next step that the Course takes that modern physics doesn't take is that the idea that made the universe is also illusory. And then Ken says, then the last step of that, of course, would be that that step is guilt, and that's the purposive nature of the universe. That we think that we need to have a universe of different things in order to justify our existence, and in a futile you know attempt to try to escape from it, we made the world and the universe. But that's really just a maladaptive solution to a non-existent problem, as he likes to say. That's the quote he wants to be remembered by. Yeah,
And I agree. Yeah,
yeah, yeah.
that's exactly what it is. So,
Hmm.
that's as you were saying that. I don't know why I just started thinking about physics and science and how it is becoming more and more uh, clear that what the course is saying is true about the world. And
Hmm.
it's interesting. I heard Glorian say the other day, she's been a student of Joel Goldsmith for quite a while, and I guess Joel Goldsmith said that scientists will be the like the next phase of this spiritual work, that science is going to be that we're going to learn about it from scientists. And she thought that he was kind of meaning like Helen, because Helen was a psychiatrist and a doctor and all that business. But I'm looking at people like um, David Bohm and I mean, modern scientists who are basically saying, hey, this ain't real. And so, yeah, but for us to, for the world to come to know that, I think that's going to make a huge difference. And I think this whole virtual and AI, as much as people are like, oh, this is the worst thing that ever happened, I honestly think that it's putting us in a place where we can actually see the how it's all artificial, it's all made up.
Yeah, yeah. It's completely fabricated, and there's nothing wrong with enjoying the dream but the only if there is such a thing as a sad part is that we doggedly resist the idea that it is a dream, that it is coming from our mind, and that's where our ultimate release comes from. Until we acknowledge, how miserable we've made ourselves by wanting to believe in separation, wanting to believe that the world is it, and we're just at the mercy of it. to, to get back to a previous thought, but then we won't be able to be merciful to ourselves or the world as long as we think we're the victim of it.
Right.
But that takes a lot of practice, doesn't it?
Yeah, it does. Yeah, it does. And we're watching Helen go through that herself.
Hmm.
And Bill as well.
Oh
We're reading
yeah, yeah.
Bill's life story in the other group. We're reading Never Forget to Laugh.
Great book
And
too. Yeah.
then we're getting just I'm excited now to start reading Ken's book. So let's
Oh
read.
yeah, me too. Me too. Okay, so let's pick up where we left off. Exactly.
Okay.
Okay. All right. Okay, so page 448 in my print version. Ken resumes his discussion commentary. He says, the same outcome of separation occurred even when the judgments were helpful and kindly meant as when Helen functioned as a psychotherapist. This acute awareness of what was going on around her and in other people's minds made Helen a very insightful and wise therapist, even though her therapeutic stance reinforced thoughts of separation. She intuitively knew the truth of what was happening in another person's mind, regardless of the overt words or behavior. Helen's therapy was therefore not a process of true joining as discussed in the pamphlet on psychotherapy, but rather one of her pointing out what was going wrong in a person's life and giving very specific recommendations about what to do about it. In the text, Jesus commented on this quality of Helen's therapy, here stated in the context of teaching. He said to her, you have taught well, and yet you have not learned how to accept the comfort of your teaching. You have taught freedom, but you have not learned how to be free. Does not the fact that you have not learned what you have taught show you that you do not perceive the sonship as one? And does it not also show you that you do not regard yourself as one? You have taught what you are, but you have not let what you are teach you. And in brackets, I can say slightly edited from the original. The passage is currently found in the text on page 311. And that's in chapter 16, volume 3 in the text. Several different passages from spanning paragraphs 1 through 4, 1, 2, 3, and 4. Okay. The reader may also recall this previously quoted statement to Helen in the original dictated material, which emphasizes the same point of reinforcing separation. And now here's the quote. Bill was right in saying that you have learned to be a loving, wise, and very understanding therapist, except for yourself. That exception has given you more than perception of others because of what you saw in them, but less than knowledge of your real relationships to them because you did not make them part of you. It is possible with great effort to understand someone else and to be helpful to him, but the effort is misdirected. The misdirection is quite apparent. It is directed away from you. Well, I think again, I think we can probably in various ways all relate to that, and we understand intellectually a fair amount of the course's metaphysics after studying for a few years or decades, um, and yet there's still that gulf, that enormous gap between what we intellectually understand and what we practice on an everyday basis when things that push our buttons cross our path, and we forget that we put them there.
Right.
Yeah.
And we get this idea that, well, it's good for you, but it's not for me.
Right. Yeah.
You
Yeah.
should be doing this, but no, not me. And I see that in myself as well. Um, and I think it's hard, maybe it was hard for Helen because of her uh, inability, not because of the way that she was, but because of her life. It's like she didn't have, that I could tell from this story anyway, she didn't have any real relationships with people most of her life. Her mother was like some distant person. Her father was like, she had a fake appendicitis to get her mother to come hang out with her. You know, she could see, you know, a lot of things in other people, but she
Mm-hmm.
couldn't relate them to herself because she was not connected to that. You know what I'm saying?
Mm-hmm.
I mean, I grew up with a lot of family, and everybody's got all their dramas, and there's sickness, and there's death, and all this stuff is going on. I come up, I'm like, totally relating to everything and everybody because that's how I've been raised to be. But Helen was raised to be alone, it seems like. And the only people that she had were her nannies, who were servants and could be exchanged. So they weren't even permanent fixtures in her life.
Mm-hmm.
So what kind of a what what kind of a self concept could she have had when it seemed like no one in the world was willing to have like a permanent bond and relationship with her. Of course, her nannies were her did, to some great extent, but not like your mom or dad or your brother or your sister.
Mm-hmm.
Anyway, it just I can see why she could not relate other people's problems to herself and have that. She had a lot of empathy for other people because she felt sorry for them, but she didn't see them as herself. She didn't have true empathy with them. And so, this is, I mean, it had to have been a really painful life. I think, I don't know, I'm guessing. It seemed like she was not a happy person. So, yeah,
Well, I mean, I don't think any of us are really happy when we believe that we're here in the world. I mean, that's I think the acknowledgement of the martyrdom, the masochism, the self-abuse mentally, if not mentally and physically, that we do when we think that we're stuck in a dream and forget that it's of our own making. One of the most telling lines I think in the course is the secret of salvation is I'm doing this to myself, right?
Yeah, yeah,
Yeah, yeah.
yeah. And she wrote that over and over and over.
Mm-hmm.
And she heard that from Jesus over and over and over.
Mm-hmm.
And yeah, it didn't, she couldn't see it in herself because I think she didn't see herself as being worth it.
Well, that's it. I mean, that unworthiness is at the core, and the unworthiness is based on a flawed assumption that suggests that we made up, um, a a belief in separation, and we think that we're stuck with it. I mean, we think that that's all there is.
Yeah, and we think there's a gradient of value and order of difficulty in miracles. We think that some things are better than others, and some things are more or less than others. And the fact is, it's everything is the same in reality, and that is the thing to say, not to really understand, because how can you understand that? But
Hmm.
but uh, but yeah, she just didn't have any empathy for herself. She didn't. And she probably felt, I mean, she was not, like I said, I don't think she was a truly happy person.
Yeah.
Even though Jesus was talking to her every day, that doesn't mean anything if you don't think you're worth being talked to like that.
Yeah, and I think that's why we need to have not only compassion for ourselves, but for everyone that we meet or think about, because we're all in the same boat. We're all uncertain, lonely, and in constant fear when we're engaged and enthralled by the ego, engaged with and enthralled by the ego, and that's most of us most of the time. And with few exceptions, I think that's describes what we call humanity in the world.
Yeah,
And that's why, really the true compassion is recognizing, if this were the real world, God would be cruel.
yep,
Um, but it isn't. That's the beauty of it, and that's what's so challenging for us to remember consistently, because that really deep-seated belief of unworthiness comes from the belief that we pulled off this impossible crime of separation. Yeah.
exactly, exactly. And I mean, that's the whole basis of for justification for forgiveness, is that it's impossible. So
Hmm.
it's
Yeah,
impossible.
yeah, yeah. It really is. And I think that impossible crime phrase is such a helpful one for me, because once I start going down the ego's, twisted path of, well, yeah, you've committed this infraction against oneness. We assume that, like the biblical God that pays attention to what we're doing in our dreams, and it can get upset by what we think we've done. That's I think what Ken Wapnick says is when you get to the point where you realize that, God doesn't recognize us, that's horrible, horrifying to the ego, but it's actually incredibly comforting to what we really are, because that means that everything I made up that's really an expression of misery and martyrdom, hasn't impacted our reality at all.
Yeah, yeah. God doesn't see it.
Uh-huh.
Can't see it. That's
Yeah.
and wow, what a thought. Have you, I mean, obviously you have. Most of us who grew up in some sort of a spiritual religious background think that God is thinking about our sins all the time. And
Yeah. And if our creator had, you know, a brain and vocal cords and all the things that we tend to ascribe, to that awareness, it would be saying, what crime, what world, what what infraction, you know, what unworthiness.
that
You've
is,
never
yeah,
you've never left.
great.
y-
And
you
how can
know.
you say that about my child?
Yeah, right. Yeah.
Don't talk about my kids like that.
Yeah, yeah. But then there wouldn't be any indignation, because the indignation requires duality, right?
Exactly, exactly,
Yeah, or upset of any sort. Yeah.
exactly. But yeah, I mean, it's not true. And God be the first one to tell you that if God knew that we were thinking these crazy thoughts.
Hmm.
But fortunately, he's not in the dream. And you can't bring God into the dream. So that's another fortunate thing. But you can sure take the dream to God and say, "Help me," and it's done. So you want me to read?
Sure.
Okay. So we're still talking about Helen's inability to be compassionate to herself, to love herself,
Hmm. Hmm.
the goodness of herself, to see her own value but she could see others. So Ken says, I was with Helen on a large number of occasions when she would be counseling someone, and her advice, again, always accurately to the point, would be totally based on the principles of the course. And I knew very relevant to her own personal situation. How helpful it would be to Helen, I would think to myself, if she could listen to what she said. When the person would leave and we would be alone, I would then ask Helen if by some chance she had remembered her words or even paid attention to them. She would laugh embarrassingly and confess that she had not listened to a word of her advice. And I knew that that was true. I never attempted, however, to impose her own inner wisdom on herself, for I understood that on another level, she knew what she was doing, even if the results appeared to be so painful for her. And again, she's thinking she doesn't deserve the goodness that is being given to her. But it's so funny that she if we're like today, when everything is recorded, then she could go back and listen to what she said, like we do all the time.
Uh-huh.
But you know that
Well, that was the era of cassettes and VHS tapes and all that, right?
yes, yeah, boy, you got it everywhere. So
Hmm.
you don't even know when you're being recorded. uh, but yeah, she just didn't see herself the same way that she saw other people. And that I think that is the most common situation of humans. We don't see ourselves the way that we see other people. We think
Hmm.
that we're separate beings. And that whole idea of separation, again, is what brings us to the point where we are, believing in this fearful world, and we're in a lot of suffering and pain because we don't know who we are. And I mean, that's the whole point of Course in Miracles is remember who you are.
Right.
Remember.
Or remember what we are, in fact, maybe a little
Yeah,
more accurate, right?
yeah,
Because the who is a person that we believe ourselves to be, whereas from the Course's perspective, our real identity is pure abstraction, which is the same as our creator, which means non-duality is true, and then we don't have to fret about all the the microscopic details of a self that's prone to annihilation because it never happened in the first place.
yeah, yeah. And and they're all microscopic, everything.
Yeah. Yeah.
Funny, like you can't even see them. All right.
Very
So
surreal, huh?
exactly. All right. So Helen's criticalness also, and is that's a good word? Helen's criticalness also extended itself on behalf of Jesus and his course. Despite all of her ambivalent feelings, she, as we have seen, was passionately devoted to the course and to its author. In earlier chapters, I have discussed Helen's observations of course students. She knew what A Course in Miracles said
Hmm.
and who it was and who said it, and her ego at times became intolerant of all those who pretended to this knowledge. Helen could see right through these students, and they became the object of her scorn and wrath, although she almost never expressed this to their face unless she knew them well. Her belief that A Course in Miracles was only for five or six was born figuratively, if not literally, of her inner knowledge of its depth and source. It was as if Helen had an inner barometer that could measure where people were relative to that depth.
Mhm.
And yeah, I guess she probably did. And it's interesting. Something just came to me as I was reading this. I have heard people say that Helen never said that Jesus was the voice, that the voice was Jesus. I've never heard that before, but I heard someone say that Helen never said the voice was Jesus. I always thought Helen said the voice was Jesus. It seemed to me that was the only thing she attributed it to. So maybe I'm making things up as usual. Okay, so so she knew. Anyway, as we have seen, Helen herself had difficulty in talking about the course, let alone explaining it to others, but she certainly understood it. Thus, she very rarely assumed the role of the teacher of the course to anyone. Once again, Helen was not averse to sometimes giving people advice if they solicited it of her, but she never actually taught the course principles per se.
Mhm.
Occasionally, people spoke of Helen's value in their lives as a teacher, but they usually, and not very lovingly, meant that by the value of observing her ego in action and attempting to look beyond it. This, of course, was an example of the false forgiveness termed forgiveness to destroy in the aforementioned Song of Prayer pamphlet. There, the process is clearly described, wherein sin and the ego are first made real and then overlooked and forgiven. So, yeah,
Mhm.
the Song of Prayer, we've gone through that here as a group. And
Yeah.
I, what I was meant to say earlier, um, that Helen just said it was the voice and she never said Jesus. I don't know if that's true. Anyway, do you have any thoughts, Bruce?
When those kind of topics come up, I always try to remind myself it really doesn't matter because if um, our physical appearance really is an hallucination, and we're using our mind to have a fantasy of duality, then does it really matter if there was a physical person in our dream of physicality?
Right. Yeah. And actually, there
I mean,
was,
when you put it in that context, it's like, does what's really important is what's the teaching that I'm listening to and reading? Does it resonate with the part of my mind that's peaceful and that wants peace? Well, yeah. I mean, that's the to me the important criteria, rather than was there a person who is telling us that persons are hallucinations?
exactly, exactly. Yeah, yeah, yeah. And I think that the question was more of, did she give it a name or did she just say the voice? But
Right, right.
the fact is that there, and people will be shocked when they hear this and think about this, but there was literally no physical Jesus, just as there is literally no physical Lynn.
Or Bruce, or
Or
anyone
Bruce.
listening to this, right?
None of
Yeah.
us really
And
have.
again, that's where modern physics, makes a pretty good inroad from what has been considered, reality for countless millennia, at least the part of the history that we know on this planet for the most part, with maybe a few exceptions from very ancient times. One of our cats is objecting to that. I think she thinks she's real. I don't know if you can hear Sophie howling
Yep.
at the wall. I moved one of my since we're preparing to move, I moved one of my monitors uh, into another room so I could get it prepped to sell and put the printer in its place. And Sophie's now wondering where did the other monitor go they used to hide behind?
Oh, yep, yep, yep. They don't like that
So she's
change.
pacing the desk a little bit disoriented, I think. Yeah. Yep.
Yep. Well, you're gonna have a whole new place for her to pace and wonder what.
Oh yeah, yeah, yeah. So when the illusion shifts, we all get a little bit ruffled, right? It's like, yeah,
Exactly.
yeah. Who moved the cheese? Who we're all playing Helen Keller and wondering, who rearranged the furniture. Yeah.
Exactly. So yeah, but you know, this topic that we're talking about, that there is no who that's doing that.
Right,
If we
right.
say that there is a villain, there's I'm a victim of
Yeah.
something or somebody, then
Mhm.
we have made that person real, made that thing real, and you know, made their sin real. And once I made their sin real so that I can forgive it, I have actually, you know, what Jesus calls forgiveness to destroy. You know, I haven't done it to make my brother uh, more safe, secure, loved, whatever. I've done it to make sure uh, that there's punishment or there's an accounting for the wrong that was done to me. And it may just be a sharp word or a look or a thought in my mind, an idea. You may not even know I was ever upset. And yet I'm over here grumbling to myself and, you know, then saying, well, he's my brother and he's been kind to me and I love him. So I'm going to let him go this time. You know, then that is, that's I might as well just take a gun to your head. You know, I mean, seriously, I've condemned you for my own decision to blame you, and
Yeah,
you know,
exactly.
it was real.
And that if we can just remember that every condemning thought, whether it's, an out and out war on a global scale or just the most seemingly minor irritation on a very local scale, it's all projection and it's never left its source in the mind, which means it's not about the the cat that's sitting on my printer or the war that's happening on the other side of the planet or the politician in Washington or the item on the news that's pushed my buttons or what, the driver on the road. Pick any favorite or obscure example, and they're all just cases of me wanting to make the dream real and that I exist, but it's not my fault, and all the things that seem to befall me are not my fault. And that's the ego's primary strategies, summarized pretty succinctly.
Yeah, yeah, absolutely, it is, uh, you know, we do it, talk about it, do it every day, do it every.
Yeah, oh yeah. And to be gentle with ourselves when we catch ourselves doing it, just say, well, there I go again. I must be afraid of the love that is in my mind, that is my real identity and everyone's real identity, that if I can just pause for a moment and just, like Ken Wapnick says, just giggle a little and tickle the craziness in my mind. And which is to say, not attack, but just notice how ridiculously forgivable and silly and absurd the ego thought system is, and just say, I think I'm learning to not identify with that, and just a little gentle inner smile comes over us, and a little more frequently, and that is our way out of hell. That's what following Holy Spirit really looks like on a daily basis, isn't it?
That's it. Yeah, and it is a moment by moment thing, day by day by day.
Yeah,
So yeah. So yeah, and Dove is saying, yeah, Helen only called it the voice. She
yeah.
never told anybody this was Jesus. I don't know how they got the idea that it was Jesus.
Well, there's such a
Helen
such
believes it's
a
Jesus.
stigma about that name, and because of, I mean, we've all got, even if you live in a remote part of the planet, you maybe unconsciously you probably have religious baggage around, formal religion, but certainly most people in the Western world have had more than enough exposure to that name to have, associations with it, both, special love and special hate associations typically. And none of those are true, but then that's just no different than the special love-hate relationships we have with everyone and everything, including our own bodies and everyone we've ever met or thought about, right?
Exactly, exactly. And I mean, we just it's all we made it all up.
Yeah.
So uh uh
Yeah.
yeah,
I'm looking at Zoom users comments. Ken is clear. It's not the biblical Jesus. is quotes him from ACIM saying, "I do not come in mockery." Yeah, and that's so helpful to remember is, the idea that we could be a specific uh, entity separate from perfect oneness is the mockery. So the idea that we make a big deal about a particular person that we give a name, Jesus or Yeshua or whatever, you know, is the current guess as to what a historical figure in our dream had as a name. What difference does that make? I mean, I could call myself Rumpelstiltskin, and that doesn't change my real nature.
Yeah,
Or
exactly.
yeah.
Well, but the thing is, that I guess is probably confusing to me and maybe to other people. And I'm not saying it's because of that I believe that there was a real person, Jesus, that walked around,
Hmm.
but that the voice who spoke to Helen and explained things to her talked about people that fictional Jesus knew, and
Hmm.
talked about things that that fictional Jesus said, and talked about things that that fictional Jesus did, and claimed them as I. When I said this, this is what I meant. And so to me, uh, it has to be. I mean, why would the voice say, I was that person, Jesus, basically, and then say, but really I wasn't. Although really, like I'm not this person Lynn either, but this person Lynn exists on some plane of the dream and is being here. I guess that's the one thing that just always confused me, because I consider Jesus, and I do think about the biblical fictional Jesus, the person and the life, uh, and the many wonderful symbols of that person and that life. And if you read Joel Goldsmith or Regina Don Akers or any of those, they're going through the thoughts and words of that fictional Jesus and that life, um, and explaining uh, the story behind, or explaining the symbolism behind it all. So, I think we're just, I'm going to claim Jesus, and I know that there is no more than I'm really here. However, I actually um, I think that the person that was identifying themselves and saying I said and did this was somehow related to that fictional Jesus. I don't know. Anyway,
Yeah,
enough of that.
I just figure if it's helpful, great. If the symbol leads us beyond specialness to peace, that's really all the course asks. And in fact, in several places in Ken's work, he says, it's the course really actually encourages us to have a relationship with the Jesus of the course, because that basically aligns us with what is used as a persistent symbol throughout the material that represents an ego-free presence in our mind. So, again, the name doesn't matter, but because that's such a prominent symbol, and because it's been so misunderstood in our culture for a couple of millennia, why wouldn't Helen, in the wise part of her mind, which channeled the course, use a symbol that could be of benefit to heal the misperceptions that we have about, formal religion over this last couple of millennia that could really be helpful to a huge multitude of people. And
Yeah.
there's over, I think, variously, I've read, over 600 or maybe it's 800 corrections of the Bible in the course. So that's a lot of undoing of religious baggage that the course can provide, in addition to its primary payload, if you will, or message of forgiveness of oneself and remembering that we're dreaming, and that our whole purpose is to be kind to ourselves and undo the belief in separation. So if that comes across, then what does it matter what symbols we use, right?
You're right about that, and I'm definitely not arguing that part. I'm just saying, throughout, especially in the manual for teachers and clarification of terms. is very specifically talking about Jesus,
Uh-huh.
very
In
specific
first person, a lot of it too.
in first person.
Right,
Yeah,
right. Yeah.
I did so that's where I go. And when he says, call on my name and I'm there, I am, it's the same as calling on God.
Right.
And so I mean, I just do, I see the elder brother. I like the symbolism, and
Yeah. Oh,
it's
yeah. And
helpful.
it's encouraged too. It basically says, in the beginning of the text, the only difference between us now is that I have nothing but the connection to the Holy Spirit, and that's what we're encouraged to do. So having that as a model, it kind of helps us bridge the gap and meets us where we're at. It's like, well, and that book that we read before this one, Lynn, you and I, Gary's fourth book of Lifetimes when Jesus and Buddha knew each other, when it talks about Jesus, Buddha, and Mary Magdalene all working together over many lifetimes, really, I think, provide an enormously helpful bridge for us to realize that, that this curriculum that we're studying and practicing isn't just a great theory, but it's actually a doable, achievable, and happily inevitable outcome for all of us. And that's very hopeful because I think the examples that were given in that first half of Gary's fourth book were wonderful because it basically said, they went through all the materiality and confusion and the jealousy and the interpersonal conflict and struggling, but they consistently helped each other, go past the facade of the superficial and get to the heart of the true nature of our real identity. And we're there on the level that we think we are doing the same thing that we're doing. The form is different, but the content was the same of bridging that gap and trusting Holy Spirit more and more. And those lifetimes were examples of how they consistently undid the ego by looking at it without condemnation, right?
Exactly,
Yeah.
exactly. And what a great gift that was to read that book,
Yeah, yeah.
because that's, I mean, that helped me out through
Oh, wonderful,
many
wonderful book. Yeah.
many confusions.
Yep.
So
Yeah. Yeah.
yeah,
Because it's not like it's some great theory that, eventually, well, it is also true eventually, but it's really in truth a done deal. I mean, it's that happy inevitability that phrase crossed my mind 4 decades ago when I was first reading the text. And it's like, well, this isn't just, something that we can hope for. This is something that we can not only look forward to, but use that vision of that it's already happened as like the guiding light at the end of the tunnel to pull us toward the truth. That the line in lesson 302 that I keep coming back to that I know Ken has emphasized a lot, and I've been listening to a lot of his stuff over the last few years. And one of the things he quotes frequently is that wonderful line says that's talking about the Holy Spirit, and our real identity. He the end we seek, and he the means by which we come to him. So in other words, the Holy Spirit isn't just the correction, it's really a symbol of the identity that we all share and are, that is the complete innocence and the complete forgiveness, the complete release from the whole ego, sin, guilt, fear, death thought system. That is, it's we're doing it. We may still have enormous resistance, like Helen does in this book, but it's a happy inevitability that we all are on the process. It's, from where we think we're at, we're in the process of undoing the ego. And from the Course's perspective, in above the battleground, it's already done. And we're just playing out, what's already been written, the script that's already been written.
exactly.
Yeah.
Yeah, yeah. So wow, yeah, this is, yeah, beautiful. Uh, thank you.
Oh,
Uh,
likewise, likewise. Yeah.
yeah.
I mean,
What
because
what
we're,
what
we're all
was
here
that lesson again? 302, did you say?
lesson 302. Yeah. It's the italicized portion at that lesson. I'll look it up and put it in the chat. Yeah. It's just really lovely. Um, let's see here. Yeah. 302.
So while you're
And
doing that, I'll just keep reading.
sure, sure.
So while Helen's criticalness of others, let's see, I already read that because I remember the word criticalness. So,
Actually,
uh,
it's the unitalicized part of that
yeah.
lesson. I just put it in the chat.
Oh, okay. Thank you. Thank you.
Sure, sure.
Okay, so while Helen's criticalness of others was based on truth, her attitude of disdain certainly was not. One afternoon, as she was ranting and raving in her mind about someone on another spiritual path she believed to be inauthentic, she suddenly heard the non judgmental voice of Jesus say to her, cutting through her judgments, don't take another's path as your own, but neither should you judge it.
Bingo.
Yep, yep,
Such a
yep.
great line, isn't it?
Don't take another's path as your own, but neither should you judge it.
I don't know how I missed underlining that the first time through, but it's getting underlined now.
Yeah, there we go. Yeah. And I'll tell you what, Bruce, it is just now that I'm coming to the place where I can even watch and think and look at other Course of Miracles teachers who I think have gone like go off into la la land and and just be able to say exactly, don't take another's path as your own, just don't judge it, because I don't know, they're reading the same book I am, but they're getting a different thing.
We're
I don't.
all in La La Land here
Yeah.
together.
We're all in
Kinfolk all. Yeah, we're all kinfolk here.
la la la.
Yep.
Okay. So, in the presence of this loving and gentle correction for her judgment, Helen's anger quickly dissipated. Jesus' statement, incidentally, as we have already seen near the end of part two, paralleled a much earlier message to her that is now found in the section entitled, I Need Do Nothing in the text, which is one of the most beautiful sections of, I mean, that really is, tells you everything you need to know, right? So, okay, so I found myself, by the way, almost never disagreeing with Helen's objective judgment about other people's relation to the course and their understanding and appreciation of it or lack of it. So he Ken also saw the same kind of thing, but
Hmm.
on most occasions, it was difficult to help her let go of her anger. Once she smelled out, in quotes, people's inauthenticity regarding their, quote, devotion to the course and, quote, lip service, unquote, love for it, she became almost unforgiving. Helen always knew what it took for a person to follow A Course in Miracles, recognizing its call for selfless dedication to Jesus and to the depth of his teachings of forgiveness. Again, to her great credit, she never pretended to others to be an exemplar of what it said. In effect, she would say, do what I scribed, not what I do.
Yeah,
And
and I think that's so easy to try to um, condemn when we see shortcomings from our own projections and realize, but then, the sanity comes when we realize, well, that's my classroom. If I see someone is not living up to my standards, well, maybe my standards are still ego-based for one. And if I'm using someone else as an excuse for me to feel separate, whether it's special love or special hate, it doesn't matter. I'm basically um, not practicing the course's metaphysics, right?
exactly,
Yeah.
exactly. And like I said, I do this myself all the time, and look and I'll read something somebody writes about the course, or see something that I'm wondering who these teachers were, because I have a feeling I know who some of them were that were teaching, and Helen was like, that ain't what I wrote.
What did you read? I didn't read.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I think I know some that she'd be still raising her eyebrows at.
Oh, sure, for sure, for sure. Yeah, and I think what's helpful is uh, I'm going to use as an example Marianne Williamson, who politically I agree with a lot of what she does, but when she, for example, says things and people think, oh, she's the voice of A Course in Miracles, and they assume that A Course in Miracles has a political side to it. Like, I just have to think, well, gosh, it would be so cool if she just said, well, this is now my opinion. I'm taking my course hat off and I'm putting my Marianne hat on. Um, that could be helpful. And yet, so there's my classroom, forgiveness when I, forget to see that she's just like me, and we've, we switch hats all the time, and whatever. We're all learning together, aren't we? I mean,
We are all
yeah,
learning together, and
yeah,
and
yeah,
that Marianne is another part of my mind.
yeah. Yeah.
Yeah. And in my
Yeah.
mind,
And,
yeah,
and I when I met her at the course conference in San Francisco that uh, Larry and Rev Tony put on in well, a couple decades ago, just now, give or take. Um, I she had a long line of people waiting to have her book signed and whatnot. And all I said when I walked up to her is, it's just I looked her in the eye. I said, "Thank you for being one of my first introduction to the course, and I really appreciate it." And that was enough.
yeah.
Yeah.
I'm sure she didn't remember you at all later. But I mean, because
I don't know.
no,
I don't
maybe,
know. I don't know.
yeah,
Who
yeah,
knows? I mean,
you
but
remember
I mean,
her.
what a tremendous gift she's given,
I know
and
it
yet we're all giving mixed messages all the time.
all the
I mean,
time.
because like right now, I think I'm for the last better part of an hour speaking fairly clearly, and then a few minutes when I talk to my wife about mundane stuff, I'll probably be back in my everyday mind
In your
more
mundane
more than
mind,
more than I want to admit. And if I can just remember that a little more often, just say, "Oh, yeah, that's we're all in the same class. The form is different, but the content is we've all got split minds, and we all need to be infinitely patient and supportive of each other while we heal our split mind, right?"
exactly. And
Yep.
that's why I'm so lucky that I have this thing that I do all day because, it
Yeah,
just
yeah.
keeps me involved. I have to be constantly, checking on it, making sure there's somebody on, the player working, all this stuff. And I think it's what a gift it is to me I mean, it's like, it just, keeps me caught up in it. And I love that. And listening to some of the greatest teachers in the world. Oh my
Hmm.
goodness. I just got a message from, I don't know if you know, Leon Joel Russell.
Oh yeah, yeah, yeah.
Okay.
I've
So,
had a couple of conversations with him that I've
oh yeah,
got
you
him on
have.
ACIM blog. Yeah, yeah. And he's got
I
a great sense of humor too. I look at his Facebook page frequently because he's got some fun little memes he posts, yeah,
yeah,
as well as
he's
some
adorable.
great ideas. Yeah.
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 So he and Stephen Dean and Luigi, do you know
Oh,
Luigi?
sure, sure.
Okay. Okay. So they have been doing a series on the manual for teachers. And so I just got a message from him this morning that they just put up number 11. So I'm gonna play that later. But
Cool, cool.
it's so much fun to me to see all these great teachers and how they experience and how they're expressing and of course I play Bruce Rawls on my radio. I go into all
I
different.
need to listen to what that guy says more often because once in a
I
while he comes up with good stuff.
know. Yeah,
When he's not coming channeling himself, at least anyway.
he's a little punster, but
Yeah,
I
yeah. But
appreciate it.
I'm learning to forgive that, right?
I'm learning.
I think my wife is a little slower on the uptake on that forgiveness, but
Well, God, how
but
long
she's
have I?
actually a better punster than I am, and she always gets upset when I say that in
That's
public. Yeah.
hilarious. That's hilarious. All right, I'm gonna put a bookmarker here because
Okay. Okay. Oh,
uh,
that's right. We're almost out of time.
we're
Yeah.
almost out of time.
Yeah. Well,
Uh,
the School for A Course in Miracles will be back in session in a couple of weeks, and then I'll want to leave promptly, but I can actually stay long. But I know there's another program that's right after her. So anyway,
yeah, we
and,
got another group coming.
yeah, and I'll probably let's see, 2 weeks from today, I'll probably be on the road driving to Oregon, and probably oh, and then after that, probably another time or two in September, perhaps. Yeah. But oh, maybe not. Who knows? We'll see. We'll see. Anyway,
We'll see. We'll see.
the 6th of September probably. So a couple of days I got on my calendar currently, the current logistics. Anyway, but anyway, as always, Lynn, such a great amount of appreciation I have for this hour that we spend on Saturday mornings together, and what a great resource we're drawing from and sharing together.
I know. I love it. And
Yeah.
thank you for being my mighty companion.
Likewise, likewise, and have a great week, everyone.
All right. Love you, Bruce. I'm gonna go ahead and
Likewise.
close.